So, hi everyone. This month, I'm really excited to introduce you to Jaye, who's the Managing Director at Launch. Launch are a brilliant performance marketing agency. So welcome, Jaye. We're really excited to have you on the Pep Talk.
It's great to be here. Thanks so much, Georgie.
Brilliant. So today we are discussing how direct-to-consumer brands can leverage performance marketing to drive not only acquisition, but also customer retention. So I guess it would be great if we could sort of dive in headfirst into getting a little bit more background into Launch and sort of your role there. That would be super helpful.
Awesome. Well, Launch is 10 years old now. We celebrated 10. I can't believe it. Well, and we call ourselves performance marketing. And I think that kind of needs a bit of explanation because we're all about driving growth. We're about driving more customers, retaining customers, and ensuring that people, as they go through that funnel or that experience, really get the right messages at the right time. It's not as simple as, I mean, I'm not so sure if it used to be simple, but it's not as simple as it used to be. It's more complex now that there's loads and loads of more data points that are often hidden by this kind of cookieless Armageddon that we're in. And so it's become a bit more complex. So we now actually have got a data and analytics department to help us deliver that, to deliver a more kind of measurability of the marketing activity, but also that kind of conversion piece that you can't just send people to a website and then expect them to just one click and purchase. So it's really understanding that kind of conversion piece. But the best thing about Launch is that we're the happy performance agency because we really want our team to be kind of motivated, happy, because happy people do great work.
Yeah, I can imagine that makes a huge impact when people have got this great culture and great team and people are motivated by what they're doing. I'm sure it has a really big impact on the work you're doing for your clients.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's been a work in kind of progress, and we keep investing in the team and enabling them to learn, be the best at what they do. And yeah, I'm excited for the next 10 years.
Yeah, amazing. Well, congratulations on reaching 10. We're 2 and a bit, so I've got a long way to go to catch you up. But actually, it was interesting to you talking about all those different touch points, because there's almost so many data points now, isn't there, that it can potentially feel quite overwhelming for clients, for brands to know which ones to sort of pull on, which ones to look at, how many, it can get very complex very quickly. So I can imagine kind of distilling some of that information and using it in a sort of cohesive way is really important.
The best way to view it, and there is an article that or a white paper that Google have written on this with the behavioral architects, is called the messy middle. So there's this idea that you have a trigger, which is I need a yoga mat or something, or I want a yoga mat, and you go online to be able to search for that. And that kind of process of going online is this massive squiggle of you looking at, I don't know, what an influencer says on TikTok, on what the Independent have written on Google, what your friend has said at your last yoga class. And there's a kind of dot around that's the exposure, all of those places that you can reach that potential customer when they're in that buying journey. And Google kind of distilled it down into this infinite loop. So you've just got this infinite loop of exploration and evaluation. And if you don't get people out of that loop and converting into a customer, then you lose them. So it's, it's kind of the funnel is dead. This infinite loop is what you're playing with. And so understanding those touch points and being able to actually visibly see them in some sort of the new Google Analytics 4 or somewhere that you can measure it and then be able to tailor your marketing message in a world where personalization is now really tricky.
Yeah, interesting. Well, it sounds like a challenge for sure. And how do you see sort of, or what are the most important factors that you see when it comes to sort of creating successful paid media campaigns? Are you able to sort of distill a few of those key metrics or factors?
So there is a kind of feeling now that Facebook and Instagram ads just aren't working anymore. So advertisers who, especially at the beginning of pandemic, pivoted online, perhaps they had a bricks and mortar store, They threw up a D2C website, a nice e-commerce website, probably on Shopify, something like that. And they started selling direct to customers online. And you could pretty much throw up, a decent spend, and some okay creative onto Facebook and Instagram, and you get sales. And you do all this targeting of, if it was yoga mats, for example, of people who liked yoga, people who look like they go to yoga classes, and you get loads and loads of sales. So then you've got these advertisers, a lot of e-commerce brands, heavily investing in these, we'll call it one channel because it's Meta, heavily investing and seeing in the interface 700% return on investment, or these big numbers. And the fact is, first of all, it was over counting, because it was taking credit for every single sale pretty much on your website, because the pixel would have been on your website to measure that. So it was taking credit for pretty much every sale, even if just an impression was from the advert, rather than any interaction or any length of interaction. And then when the iOS 14 came update came, and cookies became more scarce, and that idea that you could track everyone again across all of their different apps and all of their different activities it suddenly looked like Facebook and Instagram ads weren't working. And because a lot of these advertisers were channel centric, they then experienced this kind of massive decline in sales, because they weren't doing lots of the other marketing activity that they should have been doing. So, then some of them have again gone, okay, well, we'll come off Meta then. Let's just go hard on email. Well, that's great while you've got a big email list. And that's a really, really good way to get your, put them into some sort of kind of funnel. And they're getting great success from that. But you mustn't forget the rest of the marketing, because if you don't put new people into your email database, if you don't get new people into the top of that pipeline, then how is your database going to grow? There's only going to be so many times they're going to repeat purchase. And there's lots of tricks that you can do with that. But the most important part is to get your marketing strategy right.
Yeah, interesting. I think we've seen sort of similar in lots of brands sort of trying to weigh up that balance of, should I focus more of my effort on acquisition versus retention? And it's a hard balance to get right, isn't it? Particularly at the moment, with all the other sort of macro economic environment sort of factors playing a big part in consumers' decisions. So I think it's, when we speak to clients, it's always about finding that balance and not focusing too heavily on one or the other. And acquisition is always the sort of the shiny, more sexy thing to focus attention on sometimes, but also retention is key. So it's interesting about finding that balance.
I mean, a marketer's to-do list is never done. You have to do a little bit of all of those things. The single biggest thing that people can change before they then start kind of launching into which channels, which retention versus acquisition, is actually to go back to the basics of who is our customer, why should they buy from us, what's the purpose that we're fulfilling, how can we cut through the noise, is our proposition good enough that we can cut through the noise of 10,000 plus adverts a day that people are seeing, or messages on email, to actually make the customer feel something? And can we invest heavily enough in our kind of brand positioning and our copywriting to mean that we consistently can deliver that kind of value exchange and emotional difference? So as a performance marketeer, you probably expect me to say, chuck loads of money in Google ads, chuck loads of money on Meta and TikTok. Pinterest is working really well, which it is, by the way, at the moment, really well. But it's more important that advertisers go to the first step, which is to really, really go back to the basics. This idea that you could just throw up ads and they'd convert is gone. It is gone, and it's only getting worse because of there's more cookie-geddon coming next year. So we can't be reliant on that data. What we are in control of is our owned media, our website, our brand proposition, our product. That's where the money is.
Interesting. And so, hugely critical to get that bit right before then launching into better and that sort of thing and scaling up there. Interesting. Okay, great.
Yeah. And if it's an existing brand, they can ask their existing customers what's resonating for them. So many people are frightened to talk to their customers.
Yeah.
And there's great ways you can do it on Shopify, aren't there? There's all kinds of post purchase surveys, and Klaviyo could, fill in a way to be able to get those people to fill out some sort of survey or book a call with you. Because understanding what's motivated them to choose you, you're more likely to get then loyal customers, because if they have felt something, if they've not just bought from a promotional offer, a Black Friday offer, if it wasn't just a transactional, if it was a proper feeling that your brand has created, you can get them to come back time after time.
Yeah, 100%. It's you're right. We often are sort of again pushing sort of surveys and asking for reviews and feedback within sort of email sequences. But as you say, it's often something that brands feel slightly skeptical is probably the wrong word, but slightly maybe nervous about asking for that feedback. Maybe it's I don't know what the reason is there, but it's so valuable to be able to get that feedback from not only your sort of loyal VIP customers, but also people that haven't had the best experience, so that you can then improve on that and make changes for next time and can sort of continually iterate. It's I think you're right, gathering feedback is a really important part of making sure you've got that positioning right. Brilliant. And then last question for me is, can you tell us a little bit more about the role Launchpace in helping brands create sort of long-term relationships with their customers?
So it's about tailoring the right message at the right time to your customers. There is nothing more annoying than if someone's just purchased and you remarket the hell out of them, showing them ads to get them to purchase again. So one of the things that we do is we first of all go back to the basics of looking at what is that whole paid media strategy. So if the client has goals of, increasing their sales by 100,000 a month, and this is what they're currently doing, well, how is that working? So we analyze, we audit, how is it working, and where are the missing pieces? Because it's wonderful. Paid media is wonderful. It's like an engine. You lift up the bonnet and you're just able to see everything's so transparent and measurable if those data points are there. And actually, that's one of the things that we do first of all, is making sure that everything that is done can be measurable, because otherwise then how can we see what difference it's making? We start to separate ourselves away from that kind of last click idea, though, that it's only the last click that you're measuring. You've got to try and measure all those touch points, all in between. But you look under the hood, you look at what needs a bit more greasing, what needs, a bit of topping up. And I don't think I've ever seen an account that didn't have some potential in there. And then we look at, right, well, where are your actual customers? Okay, well, you're going heavy on Google Shopping or you're going heavy on Meta, but have you not thought about Pinterest, a search engine in itself, YouTube, a search engine in itself, Microsoft, search engine itself, DuckDuckGo uses Microsoft, Ecosia uses Microsoft. There's a lot of Gen Z millennials using Ecosia now. So there are ways to then look at, okay, well, this is where you are now. This is where you want to get to. Here are the steps to be able to get there. And then all the way along, you're testing, learning. Where it's a challenge is if the client hasn't invested in that initial piece, that brand proposition, that real understanding of how you're trying to make the customer feel. Once you understand that, then all of the creative, all of the messaging can really speak to that feeling, can really kind of evoke that feeling. So, and then you test, iterate, test. And then you hear wonderful things like, last month's target has been, blown out the water. And if it hasn't, then you lift up the hood and you look at what has not worked. It's a partnership, though. It's not where your PPC, department just get on with it. It has to be a partnership, because there will a lot of the data will be there, but there'll be a piece missing, like seeing that customer retention rates have gone up, or there will be things that there's a glow impact from increasing spend. And so we can look at more holistically the whole of either Shopify or whichever platform they're using, look at all of that data.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's so interesting about, sort of, as you say, kind of doing that audit, seeing what works, testing, learning, reviewing, and that sort of cycle, it sounds like, that you sort of follow to constantly iterate and improve. That's been super useful. There's been tons of great nuggets in there. So thank you for being a part of the Pep Talk this month. It's been super to have you.
Thank you so much for having me, Georgie.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jaye.